VW wanted to make a luxury car which will be better and at least that successful as the Mercedes S-Class or the BMW 7 Series. It seems like they had a lot of money to burn, so they built it. And as we all know, it wasn't a success story. At least financially, since they were losing money on every single Phaeton they sold. And to top of that, they also built a brand new unique factory where they exclusively produced this car to March 2016. But actually, nowadays the factory is not abandoned because from 2017 the fully electric e-Golf is produced here. Well, times are changing, that's for sure. However, let's go back to the Phaeton, which is, at the end, basically a Bentley Continental flying spur with a VW badge on it, since they share the platform and a significant amount of more or less modified parts. The interior of this car is the best VW could offer. So it's spacious, all the 4 seats can be massaged, heated or ventilated, and electrically adjustable, obviously, and the sound insulation is great, as well as the build quality. Of course, it's not a Bentley interior, mainly because it has more plastic in it, but with the leather dashboard and the door panels, it's almost a Bentley inside, basically. The multimedia system in the before facelift cars is very outdated, but cars made from November 2008 do have updated touchscreen multimedia system with much better graphics and better navigation system. VW slightly updated the interior several times, so for example, cars made from 2014 can be equipped even with this kind of a small removable touchscreen remote control for the rear passengers, so they can adjust the climate control or the multimedia system. It's definitely good to check the car properly for small corrosion spots which can appear on all of the doors, specifically on the upper part of the door under the chrome window trim and on the lower door edges too. This can occur mostly on cars which were used on salty roads during winter. By the way, the black lower trim on the doors can also rust from the inside. This Phaeton is full with electronic features, motors, sensors, units and modules, so take your time and inspect everything. But there are obviously some things which require more attention, like the special electronically operated air vent covers which can fail. Specifically the motor in them or some small plastic part in them can break. They have to operate smoothly, so open and close them a couple of times. Check also all of the window regulators, mainly on older cars, since the small plastic wheel in the window regulator assembly can break. In this case, the easiest solution is to buy a new regulator. If the car is equipped with the keyless entry feature, then test all of the door handles, because they can fail. Then check the soft close feature on all doors, again, if the car is equipped with it. The soft close motor is usually okay, but a tiny micro switch in the door lock itself can fail, which will turn off the soft close function. Obviously, test the seat heating, cooling, the air conditioning, and be prepared that on older cars the blower motor can fail too. The well-known tire pressure monitoring sensor batteries will die after 5 or 6 years, so in this case you either check the tire pressure the old-fashioned way, or you can buy cheaper aftermarket sensors. Pay attention to the electronically operated trunk lid, which can stop working, mostly just because of the damaged wiring harness in the plastic sleeve. The plastic tube will eventually separate, exposing the wires, and the wires can break. If you are very unlucky, then you won't be able to open the trunk in any kind of civilized way. To minimize the issue with this, you should occasionally put some dry lubricant on this plastic sleeve, since over time there will be more friction between the sleeve and the plastic housing it slides into. And lastly, check the windshield wipers if they work properly, since mainly on cars made to 2007 they can seize up because of the corrosion on the wiper mechanism. This issue usually affects only cars which are used on salty winter roads, so if you are using the car during winter, then you should preventively disassemble and check this mechanism. And by the way, there are 2 separate and independent motors for the windshield wipers, so it is possible that if one of the wiper motor fails, then the other will continue to operate. What a great feature! An over-engineered feature. It's of course important to check for water leaks in the interior and especially in the front and rear footwell area. The water can leak in because of the clogged scuttle drain holes, which are buried deep down under the windscreen plastic scuttle panel. Yes, exactly, these wonderful drains, which are the same as in the Bentley Continental. They can be clogged, which will cause water accumulating in this area, and it will leak into the interior and into the expensive electronic modules. So occasionally remove the plastic scuttle panel and clean this area as much as you can, plus you can try to access these drains from under the car. Then there are the front and rear sunroof water drains, which can be clogged and can leak as well. You can clean the front drains with some edge trimmer line, but if you want to clean the rear ones, then you will have to remove the side parts of the headliner. This Phaeton is standardly equipped with the adaptive air suspension, which is great and comfortable. But if the car lowers overnight, then your air struts are most probably leaking and you should replace them as soon as possible. And if the car has more than 10 years, then you are basically on borrowed time when it comes to air struts, so they can fail at any time. Check for clunking or knocking sounds from the front suspension, which is usually caused by worn drop links. The upper control arms can be more often worn as well, but you should at least visually check all the control arm bushings anyway. Worn wheel bearings can occur sometimes even after 80,000 kilometers, but mainly on cars made to 2006. In this case you will hear a humming, rumbling noise, which will increase with speed. This car was available with the standard steel brakes and also with the optional carbon ceramic brakes. As usual, avoid cars with these expensive brakes unless it's a low mileage car or you are feeling lucky or the brakes were replaced recently. All of the petrol engines are fairly reliable, so they don't have major problems. The weakest 3.2-liter 6-cylinder is a simple engine, so it is mostly reliable unless the previous owner abused it, since this engine is not very powerful and the Phaeton is a very heavy car. Then there is the 3.6-liter unit, which is equipped with direct injection. It has more power and also better fuel consumption than the 3.2-liter, but it can have issues with the faulty camshaft adjustment solenoids because of long oil change intervals, and since it has direct injection, then faulty injectors or carbon buildup can occur as well. By the way, the 3-liter V6 was available only in China, and it can have the same issues as the 3.6-liter motor. The 4.2-liter V8 doesn't have direct injection, which is an advantage, but there are two things you should keep in mind. First of all, pay attention to the plastic arms on the intake manifold front actuator, since they can crack and break. But luckily, you can buy aftermarket metallic arms and replacing them is easy. The next thing is the oil cooler coolant plastic pipe, which can crack or break completely and leak coolant. Be prepared that this is not an easy job, because you have to remove the oil filter housing to access this plastic pipe, which is inside the housing. And lastly, there is the 6-liter W12, which doesn't have major problems, but it has much bigger fuel consumption than the other engines, obviously. Plus you should keep bigger amount of money for the maintenance, since replacing certain parts or fixing some leaks will require either a lot of disassembling around the engine or removing the whole engine. There are only two diesel engines which were available in this car. The first is the well-known 3-liter V6. It has these intake manifold flaps which can sometimes fail. In this case you get only a check engine light, so the car will drive fine. All in all, the flaps can be stuck, loose, or the actuator motor can be faulty. Then there are the injectors, which can fail as well, but usually just after 200,000 kilometers. In this case you can most of the time notice a couple of signs, like the occasional light grey smoke from the exhaust while acceleration or at idle, and also a slightly bouncing idle when the engine is warmed up. Of course, clogged EGR can be also an issue, but this is nothing new. Lastly, there is the 5-liter V10, which is definitely impressive. But I would not recommend choosing it unless you are ready to remove the engine if one of the turbochargers fail, or you know someone who is willing to work on it. And most importantly, you should have the extra money for the repairs. Of course, with the proper maintenance, this engine can reach higher mileage, like 300,000 kilometers for example, but again, you should keep in mind that to replace certain parts, you have to remove the whole engine, plus if you buy an abused or a not properly maintained car, then you should be prepared for the worst. All of the engines are equipped with timing chains, except the 4.2-liter Petrol V8 and the 5-liter V10 diesel engines. The 5-liter V10 has actually gears instead of a chain or a belt, which is an advantage since the gears will withstand a long time. On the other side, in the Petrol V8 engine, there is a regular timing belt which you have to change regularly. Engines equipped with timing chains can have worn tensioner or the chain can be stretched, but just after 200,000 kilometers. This Phaeton can be equipped with the 5-speed or with the 6-speed automatic gearbox. And believe it or not, the 3.2-liter 6-cylinder petrol engine was available with the 6-speed manual gearbox as well. And in this case, the car was only front-wheel drive. But back to the automatic transmissions. If you are buying a car with the W12 petrol engine, which is equipped with the 5-speed gearbox, then it's good to find a good specialist who can rebuild it, since there are numerous cases when either the whole gearbox or just the torque converter had to be replaced even after 160,000 kilometers. So after this mileage, be prepared to have some issues with this gearbox, although regular oil changes will help to extend its life. And actually, in 2008, VW released an additional maintenance information in the US for these W12 models, which says that you should replace the gearbox oil every 30,000 kilometers. The last thing you should check on cars which are used on winter salty roads is the power steering pipe, which can start to rust. And since the power steering fluid is under high pressure, the rusted line will break at some point and let all the fluid out, so you end up with a not working power steering. To summarize things up, take your time and check everything. Buy only a car with proper maintenance history, pay bigger attention to the cars used on winter salty roads, change all the fluids in time, and definitely keep extra money for the additional repairs. As usual, if you have a personal experience with this car or more information about it, then you can write it into comments. Thanks for watching.